Good morning. How's everybody doing? Let us know where you're from, who you're here. All right, Mighty Miggy. Hello, hello.
Hello.
Okay, so welcome back to, this is our second time doing the monthly live stream. So, Ohio, Mighty Miggy. So we are testing out our new format with a 2-hour monthly live stream, and we're going to be flexible as we go through this process and figure out what works for us and what works for you guys. So what we're going to attempt to do this month is to stick with this general outline. So it's going to be a 2-hour live stream. The first hour, while people start showing up, we'll fill some time by talking about what we've done over the past month and what's coming up. Then we'll also answer first any questions that people have sent in before the live stream, people who couldn't make the live stream. We want to answer those questions first so they can easily find their answer when they go through and watch the playthrough. And for the first hour, we will sort of try to keep the questions on our monthly topic. If the monthly topic ends up not being as popular for questions as we think it will be, of course we're open to other questions too. And then the second hour will just be open questions and discussions. So, but we're going to be flexible and we're going to see how it goes, and we'll see if this works together. So we've got a couple new comments. Hi, Wayne and Stacy, checking in from North Carolina. And Vanessa, hello from Malaysia. Nice to see y'all. So, Evan, do you want to get started on... Let's talk about what we have done over the past month since our last live stream.
Yeah, well, I passed my JLPT level 3 test, so that was sort of a hurdle. I didn't know how I was going to do, but yeah, I just decided to take the test, just kind of figuring it would be like a practice test, and if I passed, I passed, and I ended up passing, so that's cool.
For not everybody might know what the JLPT is, so do you want to briefly explain?
Yeah, it's Japanese language proficiency test. So it's a quasi-governmental, I guess, test that tells you how good you are at Japanese. And I think we learned from our last live stream that the level 2 and 1, which are the highest, are the only ones that give you any kind of like a points for the residency. But this is still going to be something that we can take to our immigration lawyer, and he'll put it in with the package when we do for our next visa renewal. So it should help. It should give us, some.
So the JLPT has 5 levels. It used to have 4 levels, but they increased it by adding one more level on the bottom. I guess so it was sort of, they made it a little bit easier, but they didn't adjust the other levels. So Evan studied, he minored in Japanese in college a little over 20 years ago. So he wanted to start by taking the JLPT level 3 to see if he could do it without studying at all, and just with with our 2 years of experience living here, and he lived here before, and he just wanted to take and see what level he was at currently. So then you're considering doing a little studying and taking the level 2, but we haven't decided yet.
Yeah. And are you going to take level 5?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Mighty Miggy says, congratulations, Evie.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah, and then we've been spending the past couple weeks working on the guest house here again. We got into the bathroom. The tub has been not operational here, so hopefully you saw our video working on that, and that's just waiting to dry right now, and it should be good for guests to use in a couple of days. Danny also, so if you watch that video, I sanded the whole tub down to the bare metal, and then used a special paint that should last a couple of years to get it usable.
I think it'll last longer than that. I'm really excited because I know, the tub is going to be such a huge improvement for our guest house and for guest experience here. Everybody wants the Japanese, the deep bathtub experience, especially if you're renting a whole house. So I tried to make it very clear in the listing up until now that we've been shower only. The tub hasn't been remodeled yet, but I know that that's been a weak point of our guest house, was just the bathroom not being completely functional with the tub. So I'm really excited to get that going. And so we have the guest house, which is where we're at right now. It's blocked off until March 1st, so we can finish our renovations. And Tuesday, we're going to start a little bit of outside work to expand the driveway. It's just the very first step of our phase 2 renovations. We'll be starting right now. So Evan and I did the bath and a bunch of little things.
And Danny painted the walls.
Painted the walls. And Evan's going to do some more, there's some tiles that need replaced in the bathroom. And Tuesday is when we're going to move some of those giant rocks around outside. We have a big pile of gigantic rocks that we need to sort neatly into a wall. So then we can expand parking in the driveway, which will make room for the future retro shop. So that's really exciting. We're going to get a lot done while we still have 1 week left without guests before we open back up in March.
And how do you talk about that? Real estate.
Is that it for? Yeah, that's all we've done on the phase 2 so far.
Yeah, on the tub. Yeah, the bathroom.
Then we've also been busy doing the real estate consulting. We've gotten quite a few people interested in that, referrals from Namoto-san, who is our realtor here on the island with Shimanami Property. So he's been sending people our direction for translation and for property tours in person and video for people who can't make it here in person. And so we have a few new clients that we've been helping with the purchase process, and we only do that hyper locally, so we're not traveling to do that. We're only offering those sort of services here in the Shimanami Kaido area. So that's been another, I guess, well, we consider it like a side thing, but depending on how things go, it might become a little bit more than a side thing. I'm not sure, but right now we've got a couple of clients that we're helping purchase property here on the Shimanami Kaido.
And Mighty Miggy wants to know, do we have any Japanese employees? No, we don't have any employees. We hope to. We're thinking about that, but we don't have enough income right now to justify that.
Yeah, we were just talking about this yesterday. So we had we met a nice man yesterday who's been following our channel and is in the area. So we met him yesterday and had lunch, and he was asking about, he was just curious and asking about the possibility of us hiring people or sponsoring visas. And technically, because Benton Homestead is a Japanese corporation, we do have that ability in the future. But we've been advised for now that would not be a good idea for our own visa status, because the company needs to be earning enough income to cover not only Evan's required salary, but also the salary of whoever that we would then be hiring or sponsoring visas. So that is a possibility. Technically we could do it now, but we're not at that income level yet. So that's a possibility for a few years down the road.
And Mighty Migi says, I was looking into skipping the 5 million yen and just hiring Japanese people and find an office, but that seems... So you're saying that would be higher than 5 million yen to do all that? I mean, it could be. And we didn't look into that at all. We weren't even planning on having... We really just wanted to do... We've talked about this before, but we really wanted to just do like the off-grid homesteading type of a thing. So yeah, it's a sort of a shoehorning our experience into the business manager visa, but it's working so far. We've heard about
200,000 yen a year from Mighty Miggy's research. Well, that would be for the salary for the business manager is supposed to be around that.
Yeah, on Prodigal Inc. there is no required salary. It's not anything that's set in stone. So it's sort of the game of chicken you play with the immigration department, where you sort of put a proposal forward and see if it works, and they don't really actually give you feedback either as to whether that's good or not. But what our business lawyer and our accountant did is they worked together to look at the average cost of living here for Ehime, and they compared it to all of Japan. But Ehime is a little bit lower since we're in the countryside, and they came up with a number that they thought would work. So it's it's a complicated. There's no straightforward answer there, unfortunately.
So let's talk about this for a minute, because Prodigal Inc. is also asking about the required salary. He says, what's the required salary for business manager visa? I can't work for free. Yes, that's true. So just to back up, since we've got a couple questions about this. When we were going through the process of transitioning from the startup visa, 6 months that we had, which you're not required to earn income or have a salary from the business during that time because you're just starting up your business. However, from the transition period from startup visa to business manager, at that point, the business manager, Evan, is required to receive a salary from the business Benton Homestead. So when we were coming up with our visa application and working with our immigration lawyer, we were discussing the mandatory salary. Now, Evan and I, we live very frugally, and we want to err on the side of caution and not have a very high salary. So, just in discussions, because there's no written requirement of what the salary needs to be, we were just like, well, can it just be a few $100s a month? Like, what do we have to pay ourselves? And our immigration lawyer said, well, there is no required rule. You can't just reference a chart and it says, okay, for 2 people living in Ehime Prefecture, you have to earn at least this much. But he said, based on his experience as an immigration lawyer, he said, I've never heard of a visa getting approved with less than this much income. So that's what we went off of. And as we were going through discussions, like, Evan and I kept trying to pull the salary down a little bit, because that means, of course, the lower monthly salary, the more buffer we're going to have in our business bank account, right? Because, we don't have a huge income when you're just starting a business. A new business may not earn a bunch of income in the first couple of years even. So Evan and I were trying to pull the salary down, and our immigration lawyer was like, no, so over the course of the visa application, then we settled on Evan's salary, and it's right around 200,000 yen a month. So that's a mandatory transfer from the Benton Homestead account to our personal account. So of course we're just saving as much of that as we can, and in case we need to transfer it back to the business account for any reason while we're still getting off the ground. So that was a lot. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, that's, yeah. Vanessa then asked, can a purchased property count toward the 5 million yen investment? And short answer, no, but the thing is that you can, that's complicated too. The thing is that, first of all, you just have to have that money in the bank account, or take a snapshot that at one point you had that 5 million yen, and then you can, in theory, you can spend it on anything you want, but you're going to definitely want to spend it on the business, of course, and any kind of equipment or investments you spend on you purchase for the business, that is going to count as the capital, whatever stock or whatever that's called, of the business. So the issue is that you're going to face depreciation on that house or building that you buy, and so
and Japan values houses very low. very, very low. So that's why a lot of houses have after so many years, a house can technically be worth $0, and the only value of a property could be remaining in the land. So,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, so the principle is that you want to maintain your business at a value at 5 million yen. So you got to think about that with any type of investments you make. And that's what they're going to look at, when you go to renew your business is did you maintain that value? So it's not, in one sense, it is literally just having a snapshot of your bank account having 5 million yen at one point in history. But in practice, it's also having a business that is valued at 5 million yen. So that's what you want to be targeting.
Yes, and we do have to maintain, with each visa renewal, we have to maintain a minimum of 5 million yen in cash or, what's the word?
Liquid
assets.
Yeah, liquid assets.
So
Not liquid assets.
Now there may be not to get too off topic, but I don't think it's off topic. There may be a way for the business itself to purchase a property, and in that case, the property itself may count as an asset. However, in order to do that, you would have to incorporate your business before buying the property and purchase it in the company's name. Now that's just a theory, so we don't have experience with that. We might in the future be purchasing farmland in the name of our business, but the way we have it set up, we purchased this house that is the guest house when we were here in Japan on the tourist visa working towards getting residency. So Benton Guesthouse, the house itself is owned by us 50-50, and then the license, our ryokan hotel license, is in the name of Benton Homestead. So we are the owners and Benton Homestead is the operators. So there may be a different way to set that up for whoever had the question about that. Now, before I get distracted, there's another thing I wanted to say about that, which is, I forgot. Dang it. Go on, I'll think of it.
Okay, well, Prodigal Inc. wants to know what's the best place to reach out to us, and besides YouTube chat, and Mighty Migi mentions the website, and that's a great place to find our email and such. But
yep, you can contact us through the website, and it goes directly to email, and that's the best way.
Yeah, but we're also offering consulting through that website too. So if you want to have a longer chat, check out what we're offering there. And then so Mighty Migi. So you said something Japanese minimum wage is about 1,100 yen, and here we see a lot of help wanted signs, and I see 900 or 10 or 900 or 1,000 yen. So that's a little bit lower here. That might be because again we're in the countryside. And then Mighty Migi says, so my businesses would be 100% online, so I can use that 5 million yen to live while you work on your business. And I don't think so, but I'm sorry, but we can't really, this is something we have had a lot of back and forth with our lawyer about and our accountant, and it's just really hard to get a straight answer. Because it is, again, it's like you have that 5 million yen at one point in time and then you can spend it, but
you have to spend it on the business.
You're kind of going to be audited in a sense when you go to renew your business manager visa, so they're going to want to make sure that you still have a business that's worth that, if that answers your question. So yeah, I would not just, it's not so much that you have to just have that money sitting in the bank and not touching it, but you would not want to be spending that on food. And
well, technically you can't be spending it on food because so yes, he says, so the number, he says that's why I was asking, because I think 5 million yen is not the real number. 5 million yen is the real number of the amount that needs to be in your business account. So let's walk through that real quick. I know we've said it before, but it's always a good refresher. So the 5 million yen needs to be transferred. The first step is to open a personal Japanese bank account. That will be in your name, that's your personal money. Then you need to fund your personal account with at least 5 million yen. That'll be brought over probably from your home country. You'll go through the process with the bank of transferring that money into Japanese yen, and it's in your personal account. That's step one. Then, after you register your business and open your business, then you open a Japanese business bank account. And you have to then work with your bank, and you transfer 5 million yen minimum from your personal account over to your business account. That is considered funding your business. So that's what's required for the startup visa and the business manager visa. And at that point, the 5 million yen becomes business money. So you can't spend that on your own personal. So yes, the true number is 5 million yen, but that has nothing to do with your own personal food and expenses and things like that. So, but then once you get to a point of paying yourself a salary, then you'll see, okay, well the 5 million yen, my salary is going to come from that. So a little bit of it is personal income, if that makes sense. So it's sort of like it can be sort of like a revolving thing if you, does that make sense? I don't know if I'm explaining it very well. So it's business income is the 5 million yen. When it's in your bank account, you can only spend that on business expenses, but one of those business expenses is your own salary. So,
I think he says 100,000% understand. So,
okay, great.
Yeah.
Awesome. I feel like 5 million yen is for the okay, yeah, so we've got that all figured out. That makes sense. Prodigal Inc., Mighty Miggy, we're all on the same page.
Glad it makes sense to you, because I don't think it makes sense to us yet. It's pretty messy. Hello, Gerald.
Hello, Gerald. Nice to see you. All right, so let's go into...
we can talk about spring prep.
We had a related question first. So I got a question through email of someone who couldn't make the live chat. I don't remember their name at the moment, so I apologize for that. But the question was regarding the business office for the business manager visa. So let's just answer that real quick. So one of the requirements for the business manager visa, in addition to the 5 million yen, is to have a business office, and that cannot be located at your registered personal address. Now, with the changes to the startup visa coming up, just want to be completely open, that may or may not be changing. So I don't want to give any bad advice. This was our experience at the time that we went through the startup and the business manager visa. This was the requirement. So our registered address is our house. This is our guest house. They're two separate addresses. We own, in our personal names, both houses, and the guest house is operated as a guest house, ryokan hotel, licensed as Benton Homestead. So we were fortunate and chose very carefully the layout of our house to have a completely private house rental with no shared spaces. However, we do have a small room with its own private separate entrance here at the guest house that is unused. We actually haven't completed even remodeling that room. It's its own separate room. Guests never see it. There's no shared access. So we used that room. We are using that room as Benton Homestead's office. It has a desk and 2 chairs, and that is our office. And we are required to pay rent to ourselves to use the office in order to make it a legal business office. So each month, Benton Homestead and Evan invoice each other for various things. So Evan receives a salary, and then Benton Homestead also pays, I believe it's a 30,000 yen, which is approximately $200 to $300 rent for the office. And then, so that's another one of those like circular things that we have to do each month in order to keep our business legally operating here in Japan.
And then I bill Benton Homestead for the operating costs of running the guest house, so that's what goes back to there.
Yes, yeah. And so we pay with our personal money, we'll pay utilities, but then we bill Benton Homestead for the utility cost of the guest house. So each month, at the end of the month, getting ready for the first, I have to create these invoices sending payments to the correct accounts, which are both our accounts, but one is business and one is personal. So it is a little bit complicated, but we have a really great accountant who helped us come up with this plan. So now each month, some of the things are automated, and some things I just sort of have to input some numbers, and then we go to the ATM and make a couple of transfers between accounts every month on the first. Let's see.
No more questions.
Yeah, by the way, I see it. Mighty Miggy. Oh yeah, that's talking about the 5 million yen. Then you need more personal income to really, yes, absolutely. Yeah, so you will definitely need more than the 5 million yen to get started, because you'll need to have your own personal living expenses. And Steve's here. Real Rural Japan. Hey Steve, thanks for joining us. Didn't know if you'd be here this time. I know you've got your cafe to get ready and open a little later this morning. Saw you were on TV recently. Watched that video.
When you're modeling, do you have to deal with permits? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Our contractor handled all of that.
Yeah, so when we remodeled the guest house, you know that we had a really small time constraint in order to be able to get everything done. So while we were remodeling part, we had our contractor was doing some work in order for us to get everything done within technically like a 5-month time frame. We had everything remodeled. So he hired the electrician, which did require a permit, and so none of the work that we've done ourselves has required a permit, but we were working with a contractor who took care of the permit side for us.
Steve's sick.
Oh, cafe is shut today. Steve's sick as a dog. Oh man, sorry to hear that, Steve. Glad you're here though. Hope you feel better. Gotta drink the warm tea and stay in bed.
And Matthew, thanks for doing this.
Thanks for joining us, Matthew.
Thank you, Matthew.
Much appreciated that you are here as well. Thanks for hanging out.
Gerald, how far are you guys from a metropolitan city? A friend of mine's company moved him and his family outside Tokyo and rented a house for them for a 3-year contract. An option to rent to a company.
Okay, so let's handle those questions one by one. How far are we from a metropolitan city? So this is another thing we were just talking about yesterday. We chose our location specifically because Evan and I personally like countryside living. We don't have a desire to live in a big city anymore. We like to visit big cities, but we don't want to live in one. So when we were choosing our place here in Japan, we chose very carefully to have a place with the countryside feel, but we're close with easy access to a couple of bigger cities. So we're on an island, so there's no trains. However, we do have the bridge network. So we're 30 minutes to the south to Imabari City, and 30 minutes past that is Matsuyama, which is a big city with an international airport. So we're about 1 hour from an international airport to the south, and then the same to the north. We're 30 minutes to the north. The closest city is Ōmishima or Fukuyama, and about an hour to the north, there's 2 different international airports. So we're a little over an hour from Hiroshima, which of course has an international airport. And then there's another one, I think, in
Fukuyama?
Okayama. Yeah.
Makes more sense.
So we have, we're within an hour of 3 international airports. We're within 30 minutes of like 2 or 3 medium-sized cities. and beyond that we're an hour between some major cities, and then by Shinkansen we are 4 hours from Tokyo. Next question from Gerald. A friend of mine's company moved him and a family outside Tokyo and rented a house for them for a 3-year contract. Is that an option to rent to a company? I'm not really sure what the question is, to rent to a company. Gerald, can you expand on that question a little bit, because I'm not really sure how to answer that.
And Matthew asks, is there earthquake insurance available for homes? Yes, there is, and we have just went through getting insurance for our guest house here, which is more expensive because it's a commercial property. But yeah.
Yes, earthquake insurance is available, even though so I have some notes here for things to talk about if they happen to come up. So let's talk briefly about earthquake insurance and the earthquake standards. So our house was built, the guest house here was built in 1953. Our house was built in 1940. Both of the houses are traditional Japanese joinery, so it's no nail construction, just beautiful big wooden beams joined into each other. And of course that doesn't meet modern wooden house earthquake requirements. A lot of people on the internet really like to tell you that if you're buying an old house like this, it's going to fall down in an earthquake, or you have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to bring it up to modern earthquake standards. And that is not true, but, so first addressing the earthquake, what our neighbors told us when we were looking at houses was, well, what year were they built? They were built before this area had a major earthquake. They always talk about the big one for this area, and both of our houses withstood that earthquake. So they said essentially the house has already withstood the test of time, so you don't really have to worry about that. The houses were built well, and the ones that survived that earthquake are going to survive future earthquakes. There is a change coming in April 2025, so in just a few months. I've been reading about this for a while, and then I also saw it mentioned recently on an interview that JJ had on her Seek Sustainable channel. She had, she was interviewing some people from the Minka Preservation Society, I believe is what the group's called. There's a number of groups that have a similar name, so I apologize if I got that name not quite correct. But we can't talk about this in great detail because a lot of the detail hasn't been released yet, but in April 2025 there is going to be a potential change to the renovation regulations for large-scale repairs to wooden detached houses that are over 200 square meters and 2 or more floors. They will, if you're performing large-scale repairs to a house, it will need to be brought up to modern earthquake standards, but it's confusing and unclear at this point what that means. They have not outlined exactly what large-scale repairs is going to mean. So it's potentially a major change, but it also, depending on what large-scale repairs ends up being defined as, it might not actually affect that many people. So, but that is something to consider when you're talking about earthquakes and bringing things up to modern standards. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, we don't know enough about that yet. Could be terrible. Could be no big deal.
Yeah. So keep an eye out for that. Did we get some other questions coming in?
Yeah. So so Gerald clarified. He means, would it be viable to rent? So would it be viable basically for us to rent long term to foreign employees? And I mean, yeah, it would be.
I see.
That'd be viable. As in, well, it's possible. It's something we could do. It could be an income stream, and viability, I don't know. We haven't even examined that for income, but.
Well,
maybe.
I have seen other houses and apartments available for rent in our area for very low price.
Yeah,
so I
that's true.
don't know that would actually be a very quick return on investment depending on how much you spent on the house and the renovations. So when I say low price, there's apartments and small houses available for rent in the area for as low as 30,000 yen a month, which is $200 to $300. So cost of living here can be very low, which is great, but if you're looking to be a landlord and rent out to long-term tenants, that might not be as great for that situation. So
Yeah, well, that actually brings up something that I'm a little bit worried about here, which is that we're seeing, some for rent signs, and we've had people talk to us because we have other business ideas that we want to do, and they're saying, hey, why don't you rent from us? We've got a space, and then it's like, why would we rent when properties are so cheap here? Why would we rent when it's so cheap to buy? Mm-hmm. And so it seems like something that's happening right now with these super cheap property prices is that people are buying thinking they're going to be able to rent, and so it's sort of like I'm a little bit worried that that's going to create something of a bottleneck where a lot of the properties get bought with no idea of how to use them other than just to generate passive income. So yeah, I'm a little worried about that moving forward. I'm worried about that sort of like transitioning into a weird environment where there's sort of like too many landlords and not enough tenants.
But there's so many abandoned houses. I mean,
yeah.
the current estimate is that it's going to increase to 20 million abandoned houses by 2030, which is only 5 years away.
Well, and the issue is not there's plenty of supply in terms of just raw buildings. The issue is getting them up to being a livable or a usable thing, So yeah, I think that if you're thinking about moving to Japan or buying a property in Japan, I think that the number one thing is you just have to have an idea of how to use that space and how to make money from it, because the value of the house is not going to increase, and the number of buyers, like, you're not going to be able to flip it. The number of people who are buying houses is not increasing. So that's just something that comes to mind, when we talk about that, like renting. I worry that there's not enough of a use for all of these houses. There's not enough like just practical ideas for how to put these actually to put these properties to work for you. So.
And Mighty Miggy says most of them are in the countryside, sadly. So I guess a lot of people are looking to live more in the cities. Not everybody likes the countryside like we do. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next few years. I know a lot of houses are selling in our area, and a lot more are coming on to the market as well. So I'm sure that's all over Japan, and that's not just our area. We chose a location specifically because it's what we wanted, but there's so many amazing places to live in Japan, and I mean, houses are all over the country. If you look hard enough, you can find a house pretty much anywhere. So it's just a matter of finding one that's in a condition that is salvageable for your budget and your ability and based on what you want to do with it. But I'm confident that if someone looked hard enough, they could find a house anywhere. And we've got a couple questions I want to get here before they go away. So I am Japanese, living in the USA. Watching you guys really motivates me to retire in Japan. Thanks for all you do. I'm sure it can be very complicated paperwork, etc. So much respect. So wishing you the best as well. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your encouraging comment. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Amy.
Vanessa says, do side business by the spouse like consultancy work not related to the Airbnb count towards business revenue? Yes. So we set up our business incorporation documents very carefully, and I know I've said this before, but it's worth saying again. This was the best advice that we got because it's very time-consuming and expensive to adjust your business incorporation documents after the fact. It can take a couple of months for the paperwork to process, and it can cost something like $700 or $1,000 to adjust your corporate documents. So we were told to sit down and brainstorm just a huge list of everything that we might possibly want to do in the future ever, and put all of those things onto our business incorporation documents. So everything that we do here can count as income. And that's very, very, very important for us, because we have to make a certain amount each year for our visa to be renewed. We have to show that our business is profitable. We have to show that we can support ourselves. And so it's very, very, very important for us to earn an income, because right now our visa renewals are 1 year. So every year. We're hoping for a longer one this December, but we had 6 months, then we had a year, now we have a year. So, and every time we have to show that our business is earning income. So, the guest house counts as income, the honey and the farming counts as income, donations here on YouTube, our social media, buy me a coffee, that counts as Benton Homestead income, and our consulting and in-person and online real estate consulting, all of that counts as Benton Homestead income 100%. So that was definitely the best advice that we received. So our business incorporation documents includes consulting, even though we weren't doing that when we opened our business. When we registered our business, we didn't know if we would ever do consulting, but we were told to use vague terms, big terms that could be interpreted many different ways. So we said, restaurant, packaged food, like maybe someday we'll make tamales and sell them, food cart, all these things that we don't have time for currently, but we are interested in and might do someday. That's all in our business incorporation documents, so it can be counted as income. I hope that answers your question.
The only thing to add is that you can only, as a spouse, under a spouse visa, you can only work up to 28 hours.
Yes.
So.
Yes, but so I am technically a free employee, because I can work 28 hours for a Japanese company if I wanted to, if I had free time. But I am working for free for Benton Homestead as essentially just a free employee.
And Matthew asks about car insurance, and I think Steve answers your question pretty well.
Thank you, Steve.
So,
what was the question and the answer?
Just asking about car insurance, how it works. Is it included in the Shokan every 2 years? And it's yearly, and then Steve says, explains you get personal injury insurance for the other person, but doesn't cover property damage, property insurance. So that's separate for... Property insurance is separate for your car. Yeah, so that's more than I know, to be honest. But
it's pretty affordable. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head. I think I put it in our blog before, but I can't remember. So the Shokan is every 2 years, right?
Yeah.
And then the car insurance is every year. The car insurance itself is pretty affordable. The Shokan is a bit of a shock, but that's how we got our K-truck so affordably. From a farmer was retiring, and his Shokan was coming up soon, which I think is about $700 or more, and so he sold us the K-truck at a lower price, because we would then be responsible to pay for the Shokan that was coming up just a few months after we bought the K-truck. So it is a way to do a little negotiating. We didn't actually negotiate with him. He offered the low price because the Shokan was coming up. But that's one thing to look for when purchasing a vehicle.
And then Gerald says, the key, it seems, would be to market the value in terms of the experience of staying with you compared to the houses.
Yes.
And that's that's the sort of the big challenge I think that we're dealing with on Ōmishima, is we need more experiences, as it were, to to get people to be coming here because I mean it's the countryside, it's beautiful, but people run out of things to do. So we're really really hoping to see more restaurants.
I don't think people run out of things to do yet because a lot of people are probably not staying in the area long enough. We hear from so many people, I wish I'd stayed an extra night, I wish I'd stayed an extra 2 nights because, you know, there is more to do. But beyond that, 3 nights, 4 nights, yeah, like Evan said, is absolutely correct. We need more restaurants in the area. We need a little more entertainment. We have some great restaurants. The islands have some fabulous food and entertainment, but for a visitor, they're not all open 7 days a week. You know, it's very different here as far as how frequently places are open. Some are only open 2 or 3 days a week. Some are only open Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So every time a guest comes in, I always help them find the restaurants that are open that particular day or the day they're leaving, or, you know, what's going to be open during their trip. Go here on Thursday and then here on Friday because it's only open this day. So being in the countryside, we would definitely appreciate more entertainment and restaurant options. That would be great. What's up next?
I can read this from Gerald again.
Gerald says, I've loved Japanese culture and studied the history and culture since I was a kid in the 70s. I've traveled there and value and respect what you guys are doing. It's a lift, but has lifelong value. Thank you, Gerald. Feel free to come visit anytime. We're a bit off the beaten path, but not too far. The Shimanami Kaido is actually known worldwide by bicycle enthusiasts who travel here to ride the bridges. When we were full-time house and pet sitters in Mexico, and we were working towards the startup visa here in Japan, we had an amazing coincidence where when we contacted Imabari City for the startup visa, we were staying in a couple's house, babysitting their pets while they were on vacation, and they were cyclists, and they knew what the Shimanami Kaido bridges were. So we were in Mexico, babysitting 2 dogs in a tiny village outside of Oaxaca, and the owners of the dogs that we were babysitting and staying in their house, they knew the Shimanami Kaido, and we were on our way to live there. So I just think that's a great coincidence.
Cody was able to make it after all.
Hi Cody, glad you made it. What was your initial process for narrowing down a location? I know you mentioned in the past that it was climate and tourism as main factors. Any more details? Yeah, we had a long list. So when we were in Mexico traveling, and we sold our house in the U.S., and we decided we were going to live permanently in Mexico or Japan. We were leaning towards Japan, but the borders were closed, and so we had 15 wonderful months pet sitting and traveling throughout Mexico. During that time, our full-time job, we weren't paying rent for the most part because we were staying full-time babysitting people's pets. So our job was taking care of pets and people's houses and researching Japan and getting our path to the startup visa. So we came up with a big laundry list of our ideal place, because as Evan says, how do you pick a place in Japan? Anywhere is going to be pretty amazing, so you gotta, we had to come up with a lot of a list of things and find the place that met all of those needs. So yes, climate, yes, tourism. We wanted a countryside village experience that has easy access, meaning bridges, roads, not having to take the ferry to the main islands, within 30 minutes to an hour, which we found exactly here. And tourism would be for the guest house as well as for my photography, which has not really come into play. I when we were planning our business, I thought that my photography would be one of the main pillars of our business, because I've been a professional photographer for almost all of my adult life. And in New Orleans, 50% of my photography clients were tourists. So I thought, great, this is a tourist area, Shimanami Kaido, we got all the cyclists coming through, so I can offer portraits for tourists and cyclists coming through. And while I do intend to work towards that in the future, I do think that having the guest house and there's so many tourists coming through every day, I do think that when we get some things more established, I will be able to focus on the photography more and capture some of that tourism photography need. But that's sort of why we wanted the tourism, and then climate for the bees. What else were we looking for?
Start visa? I think we made videos about this pretty extensively, so I would just refer you to our videos we've talked about this. But.
Yeah. Is there anything else that we wanted specifically in a place, though? Well, also Evan found our house.
Yeah.
So,
that's true.
not the guest house, but the house that we're living in that we haven't renovated yet. Evan found that house in 2020 or early 2021, about a year before we left the U.S. And the house was still on the market when we got here. And because it was very scary, very intimidating and huge and full of stuff. So that was another big draw to this area. So then when Evan put it together that this house that he fell in love with was on a little island, but it was still part of the city that offers the startup visa, I mean, that was pretty much it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Question from Mighty Miggy about. So Mighty Miggy, we don't know anything about the employment situation for having to I guess there's a condition that you can get the startup visa with 2 Japanese employees instead of having 5 million yen in a bank account, and I'm sorry, we just don't know anything about that. We didn't go that route, so we're not sure.
Yeah, we don't like to offer advice for anything that we haven't done ourselves.
The only thing I can speak to with your question is I think that the idea within an investor is that you're going to be putting money up for the business. So if you want 2 Japanese investors, they're not going to be working. Is my understanding. So, but sorry, we don't know much about that. So
yeah, I would recommend talking to an immigration lawyer about that question. We only like to offer. I don't want to give anyone bad information, so we don't have any experience with that, so I can't. I would just be guessing, basically, and I don't like to do that. So, we do recommend our immigration lawyer, Shimizu-san. His business is Japan Immigration Experts, and he does have a free consultation. He wants to make sure that you and him are both a good fit for each other. So, and Shimizu-san is also highly recommended by many other people. He was recommended to us by 2 or 3 or more people before we contacted him. Trustworthy people have recommended him to us, and then he's been absolutely essential. He helped us with all 3 of our visa applications and extensions and incorporating our business. So highly recommend talking to him for anything that we don't have personal experience with.
And then Vanessa wants to know, does our ryokan license require us to live within 10 minutes of their ryokan? That's a good question. I don't think so.
It does require, I don't know, because we live 2 minutes away, so it may not have come up.
The thing is that our initial license was called the Minpaku license, and that means you're supposed to live on site. So that didn't work for us, so we had to change it. And it just doesn't come up. I don't know. I wouldn't want to be honest.
Wouldn't want to what?
Live farther than.
No.
Away.
I would not want to live further than 10 minutes away either. Is that a requirement that you read somewhere? Maybe I'm just not remembering because it didn't come up for us because we only live 2 minutes away. But no, we like being close. Guests often have a lot of questions, and I think it makes people feel a lot more comfortable that they have a completely private guest house, that we're not here, but we are literally just around the corner if they need anything or if things come up, because emergencies do happen, and questions arise, and like one time a circuit breaker blew and we were here within 2 minutes and the guest was just like amazed. So I do think it's really important to be close. So she's saying yes, she read that you have to live 10 minutes. So we also looked into well, I don't remember exactly, so I don't want to say it for sure. But we did some reading about whether or not you can have a like a host on your behalf, or actually I don't remember how that works, because we plan to be hosts. We do everything for the guest house ourselves. We are just off-site hosts that live 2 minutes away. So so we never looked into like having a cleaning service or a laundry service, or someone come in and do anything besides ourselves. So we're 100% hands-on with everything that we do.
Gerald asks about public bathrooms in Tokyo, designed for the 2020 Olympics. Sorry, we don't get off the island very much.
Yeah, 99% of my experience in Japan is right here on this little island, so yeah, sounds cool though. Cody says, right, startup visa specific locations were a larger factor back then. Yes, absolutely. So I don't know if you've been following the news with the startup visa. It sounds like you're aware that it's going to soon be nationwide as soon as the more places start coming online. So it'll be really curious to see how quickly that happens over the coming months and possibly up to a year. Let's see, let's catch up on these questions, and then we're reaching the hour mark, so then we'll maybe shift gears a little bit. Real Rural, Steve says, if you like paying someone $100 to go and fix a small issue, yeah, exactly. Yeah, we, good luck finding anyone with money dedicating themselves to your, yeah. I think if that's referring to the ryokan, then yeah, we do all of that. We do all of that ourselves. So we don't hire anyone for it. We don't outsource anything. Some people seem to be surprised by that. We did have we've had conversations with a few people who just sort of assumed that we hired people to come in and do the cleaning for us. Because that's like time consuming or labor intensive. Some people assume that we like hire a property management company, but I would never dream of doing that personally. I have no problem coming in and being the one that cleans and does laundry and all of that. So, and also with the small profit margin, it wouldn't make sense for us to be paying anyone to do those things for us. Vanessa says, thanks for answering those questions. We hope to move to Japan this year through a startup visa. Awesome, good luck. Please keep us posted with your journey and where you're going and how things go. We're very, very curious to see how the startup visa process changes. So if anyone starts going through the new startup visa process in one of the new locations that was not offering it previously, I would love to hear how that goes and what the new requirements are. So if you end up doing that, please let us know, so then we can sort of share that information with our viewers. That would be great.
That's good.
Okay, so we are at 1 hour, so that's halfway through. Keep the questions coming if anybody has any other questions. Let's jump back to Well, I'll bring this up. So we were planning, again, we said this is sort of a new format. We're experimenting with how we're going to keep the flow going with these monthly live streams. So we haven't talked about our monthly topic yet, which I guess I'll just get into real quick. So, of course, any questions are welcome, but we thought we'd present a monthly topic. And for this month, there was a recent change to Japan real estate property purchases. Now, it's not super recent. This change went into effect July of last year, but we have only seen it in first-hand experience recently, helping some of our real estate consulting clients go through the purchase process here in the area. So if you're not aware, previously Japan's realtors were only allowed to charge a certain percentage based on price of the house. But as of July of last year, for properties under 8 million yen, which for US dollars, that's about $53,000. So houses that are 8 million yen and under, realtors have a new maximum brokerage fee. Instead of 5% of the property purchase, they can charge up to 330,000 yen, which is approximately 2,200 US dollars. And in Japan, realtors can represent both the buyer and the seller, and that brokerage fee can be collected if they choose from the buyer and the seller. That's the new as of July last year. And this is the regulations from MLIT, which is the Japan's Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport, and Tourism. So what does that mean for buyers and sellers? So for example, when we bought the guest house for 1 million yen, which at that time the exchange rate was about 7,500 US dollars, our realtor charged the maximum at that time, which was 5%. He made under $400. He made $375 on the sale. So he's a great guy. You can imagine he did a lot of work for very little income. As with all realtors in Japan selling very low price houses with the maximum of 5%, they don't really have an incentive to do a whole lot of work, do they? So, under the new rules, if we were to purchase a 1 million yen house right now, a realtor could charge up to 330,000 yen, which would be approximately 2,200 US dollars, which would be 6 times more. Now, they're not required to, but they can, and so that might come up. So we just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the pros and cons, and how that may or may not affect low price house sales in the future. So if this is an interesting topic to you, we can talk about that. If not, we can move on and just continue answering questions. So what we see, some just surface level pros and cons to that. The pros would be, and the reason that Japan says that they changed this regulation is that it incentivizes realtors to seek out properties, list them, and show low value houses, low value to, by Japanese standards, 8 million yen and less. Because think about it, if a realtor is only making a few $100s and he has to go to a property, take photos, take video, deal with the seller, list the property, get emails, get phone calls, handle people who are interested in buying the property, take them to the house, show it around, go through all of the paperwork process, deal with the judicial scrivener, sell it, all for a few $100s. Once you figure out their hourly investment in that, they are not making very much per hour, so why would they work hard to sell these low-cost houses? So another pro would be that potentially more abandoned houses will get sold instead of continuing to degrade, continuing to be abandoned, and eventually just basically falling into the ground. So I can see the pros and cons. Obviously the con is that it's an increased cost to buyer and or seller, but I can also see the pros, as it might mean if realtors are more incentivized, there will be more houses available because they're willing to go out and take those photos and make those listings for the houses to help the sellers actually get their house advertised for people to buy it. So what do y'all think? Are we getting comments coming in?
They've got some questions, but on other stuff. So
Okay.
yeah, Prodigal Ink just says sounds good for realtor incomes. Yeah, and getting fees from both seller and buyer. I mean, it's a different system than we have in the United States. So
It's very different here.
But-
You know, no offense if anyone is an American realtor, but you know, you don't really trust realtors in the US. Like, it's just a thing that they just make huge chunks of money off your house purchase and sale in the US, and you know, they work hard too, but I wouldn't say that I would like inherently trust an American realtor, but here in Japan, it's just, our experience has been so different, where every time, in our experience purchasing 2 houses, and in our experience helping other people doing the real estate consulting with our island's realtor, when someone expresses interest in a property, they literally take the listing off the website. Like, they're not trying to start bidding wars. They're not trying to sell a property out from under someone else. These are things that happen in the US. Realtors encourage bidding wars, and like, they want to show the house to as many people as possible, and then whoever makes the first offer or the highest offer is going to get it. And that just doesn't seem to happen, at least with the properties in the price range that we're talking about. So I do think, on the one hand, that realtors are more trustworthy in that regard here. If you express interest in a property, they're not going to show it to anyone else until you say, I'm no longer interested in this property and I'm moving on. And they do a lot of work. For example, on our island, we found out recently that about 50% of the properties are unregistered because it's the countryside, and that adds a ton of legwork during the sale. It can add a couple of months to the process if you need to go through the registration process and handle things like that prior to the sale going on. So I know there's a lot going on behind the scenes, and you know, we can say, well, it's better for realtors' paychecks, but when the paychecks are only a couple $100s to begin with, I can definitely see the pros of that, in that realtors would be more willing to sell a 1 million yen house than they were before if they're only making $300. So I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if other people feel the same as me. I don't need everyone to agree with me, but that's my thoughts. What do you think?
I don't want to get off into the weeds on how I feel about that stuff. So, yeah, I agree. But so Real Rural Japan says, if you are coming to Japan to start a business and $2,000 is too much, you're cutting it way too close. Well, Steve, I hate to break it to you, but we are cutting it too close. That would have been a big, not quite a deal breaker, but that would have been much more nail biting for us if we had to spend that. But you're right, it's fair. I don't think it's a.
It's fair. That's fair, Steve. Yeah.
Yeah. Stacy says, it seems like there is not an equivalent to the MLS for listings. Yeah,
That's very true.
There's not a centralized housing database, and yeah, and that gets to what I would say about Danny's earlier comments about just the whole market, you know, and the way that you know, transactions are conducted here, where, you know, in the West it's just turned into a giant, yeah. I don't know. The word capitalism is so, I guess, polarizing these days that I just don't want to get into it. But there's pros and cons of the system, and for me, it's nice to live in a society where things are not so, tied towards, the almighty dollar, basically. But again, it leads to certain inefficiencies, shall we say, and yeah.
Yeah. So Stacy says, yes, Stacy, you're right. There is no equivalent to the MLS here, and that ties into Vanessa's question, which is asking for suggestions or strategies to find off-market properties not on traditional websites. Now, Steve says, Vanessa, I bought mine off-market, got a great deal because I had a relationship with the locals beforehand for about 6 months. And that's great. That's a way,
That's the only way, honestly.
Yeah, that's the only way. That's how we got the guest house. We didn't have a relationship for 6 months beforehand.
Like, the way we got this guest house is I reached out to Nomoto-san, our realtor, to buy our house to tour our house that we purchased, that we live in, and he mentioned that this house, the guest house, was not on the market but available, and it's a 2-minute walk. So that's, word of mouth is how we got our guest house. But seriously, Vanessa, probably the best way, maybe the only way, would be to find a location, as in a town or a village or a city that you want to live in, and rent there, and then just start pounding the pavement. And hope your Japanese is good enough to ask around, because that's what it's going to take. This is
And when you're looking at houses, our neighborhood has a lot of abandoned houses. It also has some houses that people only come visit a few times a year. And the way that you can tell the difference between a house that no one is living in and a house that someone comes to visit a few times a year, besides, obviously you can see a house is abandoned if there's plants growing out of it or something, but the good condition ones, you're not going to have the gas tanks hooked up. Most houses, at least in our area in the countryside, they'll have a kerosene tank for heating water, but then for the stove and other things in the kitchen, they have those little torpedo-looking gas tanks hooked up to the house. And if they don't have any gas tanks hooked up, then nobody's living there, because you have to pay monthly rent on those gas tanks. Whether you use the gas or not, you're paying to rent the little torpedoes that you hook up to your house. So some houses look to be in decent condition, but we never see anyone there, but they still have the gas tanks hooked up. And then we'll notice, like a year later, we'll say, oh, there is a car in the driveway. They do come here once in a while. Or we'll see a house that no one's ever there, and it looks in good condition, so we don't know if it's abandoned or not, but then we notice it doesn't have the gas tanks hooked up. And that's a pretty good indicator that that is actually an abandoned house. So what you would do then, if you find a house that you want more information on, of course, ask your neighbors, get to know people, be a part of the community, and maybe they'll be able to put you in touch with the seller. And another way, something that we've done with our real estate consultation, is to, I'm not going to be able to remember the name of the department offhand, but there is a department in City Hall that you can go to and see who a property is registered to. It costs about $10 or $12, and you have to go in there, and they have a giant book. You need to know the street address of the house, and then you'll use this big book with a map of the whole town, and then you'll find each house has a street address, and then they also have a secondary address for registration purposes. So there's employees there in the office who can help you look up what the registration address is, and then you simply pay them about $10 or $12, and you receive a document. It's not usually it doesn't have a phone number, but it would have a name and address of the person that the house is registered to. Now that person might be deceased, or might no longer be able to receive letters at the address that is registered, but that's another way to find out at least a little bit of information. It'll tell you the year the house was built, the property size, and then the name of the person that it's registered to. And I think it might tell you how many owners it's had, that sort of thing. So we've done that twice for some of our real estate consulting clients. That's really helpful. There's actually a house just down the road that we might go through the process for ourselves, because we're super curious, and our 5-year plan includes adding a second guest house and we would really like it to be very close, very close. So we want it also to be within a 2-minute walk of our house. And we looked on Google Maps, and that particular house has been abandoned for at least over 10 years also. So we might be doing that process for ourselves as well.
And Cody asks about basically buying houses without a realtor, and you can do that. There's just that paperwork that you would probably have to have a greater proficiency in Japanese than I do. And there's another professional called an administrative scrivener, a gyosei shoshi in Japanese, and they're the ones that do all the actual paperwork, the title transfer, and writing the deeds. And
now the scrivener fee, I just looked this information up last night, so I would have that offhand. So the realtor has their fee. The judicial scrivener fee, ours was close to $1,000. So that fee is unavoidable, whether you use a realtor or not. So that was also something to consider when you're purchasing a property.
Yeah. And then the other option too is the Akiya bank, so which we don't know anything about, and so I don't know if you're dealing with a realtor if you go through the city to buy a property.
Yeah, we started the process of inquiring about a house in an Akiya bank when we were first looking at possibly moving to Oita Prefecture, and we submitted an application for that, and we were the application. Yeah, when you're buying from an Akiya bank, it's different because they're going to vet the people who buy it, and they're going to sell it to someone who's going to live in the house and be a part of the community and answer their questions the way they wanted. So we had to submit an application that said, if you buy this house, are you going to cut the lawn? If you buy this house, are you going to take care of the plants around the outside? Are you going to be involved in community events and all that? So an Akiya bank purchase is different from a private purchase, whether you have but we don't personally have experience with that any further than submitting an application. We did get our application accepted to get more information about the house, but then at that point we decided that we weren't going to move to Oita Prefecture, so we didn't go any further in that process. And again, we don't want to lead you astray and tell you any things that we suspect that we don't know for sure. So
we have an off-topic question that I want to get to before we move on. Jean-Claude asks, is there any news about whether the areas for the startup visa changing to nationwide if they require the specific industry? So he says tourism in Kyoto, etc. And yeah, that's a question we have. So the thing is that's going to be decided at the nationwide level, so it doesn't sound like there are. It sounds like it's going to be open, but the issue is going to be that since it's decided at the nationwide level, there might be some of those smaller areas that we're offering specific industries that are no longer going to be
that's
offered.
a major question. That's a big question that hasn't been answered yet about the new startup visa requirements. So we have the same question as you and have yet to see any official announcement from Japan Immigration about that. So that's one of the things that we're very closely looking at and very excited to hear about, because that's going to be a make or break subject for a lot of people looking at the startup visa. If they limit the fields that the startup visa is able to be, even with us, our startup visa experience, having a guest house and a honeybee farm, like if they change it to wanting only technical businesses or certain innovative technology businesses, like we wouldn't have made the cut. So that's a big question. We have the same question as you. Now that brings up an interesting statistic that I wanted to share with you guys. Again, I'm so bad with names. I'm really sorry, but we had a comment come up over a year ago. I made the startup visa to business manager visa complete process video. That's one of our most popular videos. It's been watched the most and has the most comments. And I just got another comment on it last week from a viewer who watched it for the first time and shared an interesting statistic with me. So I had to go look it up myself, and it's sort of blew my mind. So I'm sorry that I don't remember your name. Nice person who shared this comment with me, but I did look it up, and they had accurate information. So the startup visa numbers. Have you ever wondered how many startup visas have actually been issued? A company called JETRO, G-E-T-R-O, Japan External Trade Organization. As of May 2024, which was 9 months ago, so the numbers aren't accurate up to today, but 9 months ago is pretty recent. So as of May 2024, there were only 716 startup visas issued ever, and that includes both programs, because previously it was 2 programs. It's in the process of being merged into one. Of those 716 startup visas, one is us, and 359, so almost exactly 50% of those startup visas submitted an extension application for business manager visas. So only 700 approximate startup visas have ever been issued, and only 50% of those continued on to become business manager visa. 359 successful startup visa to business manager visa transitions. Is that wild? I thought it would be higher than that.
Think about how much money the government is spending on those 359 successful business manager visas, you know? Now the federal government is asking we don't know if it's prefecture or city level yet, but the federal government is now asking every single local government to come up with a program to help people like us, and so, think about your return on investment there.
Yeah, Jean-Claude, it sounds super low. Super low.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Now, granted, it wasn't a program that had been around forever. Again, numbers fly out of my head right now. I'd have to go look back at my own blog, but I can't remember how many years the 2 separate startup visa programs had been operating, but 700, and then only approximately 350 made it. So that's almost exactly 50% actually completed after the startup program becoming business manager visas. So that seems super low to me. I don't know about you guys. Maybe it's not as shocking, but
Steve thought it would be lower.
Steve thought it would be lower. Oh, Steve.
Oh, thank you, Stacy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wayne and Stacy.
Steve.
We can't wait till you're back on the island. We're gonna put Wayne to work. Stacy, you're probably off the hook, but
Steve, speaking of wild ideas, when we were first putting together our business plan, I don't remember where I got this. It was from Imabari City or somewhere else, but they sent me an example of a business plan that we could follow, and the example business was literally smell-o-vision. It was literally some sort of like smell emitter that they would put in movie theaters, so you could watch a movie and they would emit smells to go along with what was on film.
Yeah, it was like a sample for how to fill out the startup visa application. Their sample example business.
Smell-o-vision.
Smell-o-vision.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to read Gerald's comment here. Gerald says, I think you guys offer the benefit, comfort-wise, of staying with English-speaking foreign owners. For example, traveling to Japan with a travel group from your company is less stressful than solo. I agree with you, and I think some people consider that a pro, and some people might consider that a con. So I think it's working both for and against us. So it is what it is. And we mostly get foreign visitors. I think we're well over 80% of people who come to our guest house are non-Japanese. But then you'll also see people who say, well, if I'm going to Japan, I want to stay at an actual Japanese house, with a Japanese host. And we're friends with quite a few other people who do this sort of thing, either online or locally. And 2 islands away from us, there is a nice Japanese couple that we met a few months ago. They were introduced to us by a mutual friend, and they run a guest house on their island, and they do the cool thing where they actually cook for their guests and they share a meal together, and then they leave and the guests stay in the private guest house. And they said that's a major tour for them. They also have very, very few Japanese guests. So we're a foreign people running a Japanese guest house. They're a Japanese couple running a Japanese guest house. And we both share in the fact that we're almost a very high percentage of non-Japanese guests. So I thought that was really interesting. I didn't know if, possibly part of the reason we're not getting as many Japanese guests as foreigners is that, maybe they assume that we don't speak Japanese, or, maybe for some reason that's, they don't want to stay with foreigners. So I was surprised that when we spoke to that couple, they said they have almost the same percentage as us, as of foreign guests, as very few Japanese guests. So I thought that was interesting.
And what's going to happen though is that if they don't like something about your Airbnb, and they see that you're foreign, they're going to say, oh, well, obviously because they're foreign, they don't know what they're doing. So there's that too,
Yeah, there's pros and there's, as with everything, there's pros and cons, and some people are going to prefer to stay with an English-speaking host, and some people are not. So everybody has their own preferences, and it's just a matter of putting yourself out there for the people who want to stay at your guest house. And it's the same for photography. I always think of that in my mind because that's what I've spent my whole adult life doing, was operating my photography business. And there's enough photographers and there's enough clients. There is a photographer and a client for everyone. And sometimes you are the photographer for that specific person, but you are not the photographer for everyone because of your style or your price range or the services that you offer. And if you're not the photographer for that person, that's okay. They're going to go find the photographer that's right for them, and you're going to find the client that's right for you. So that's the way that we operate our guest house as well, is, we've put a lot of thought into this. We put our 4 years of experience hosting in New Orleans towards this, and we're really just doing the best we can. And we're not going to be the place that everyone wants to stay. For some people, we're going to be too expensive. For some people, we're going to be too cheap. And that's fine. We are looking for the client that's just right for us.
Okay, we have two questions about the timeline for the business manager, or for the startup visa changes.
Okay.
So Jean-Claude's mentioning the April 1st date. I remember that. What is that referring to?
April 1st, we were, read his question first.
It says, what's the significance of the April 1st date?
Thrown around by Facebook by someone on
for
the
new startup visa. That's
Okay, so my only knowledge of what that might be referring to is when I contacted... Oh, thank you, Gerald.
Thank you.
Thanks for the honest conversation and opening your situation and yourselves to discussion. Keep on keeping on. Thank you, Gerald. That's much appreciated. Always welcome to ask questions, and we'll answer as best as we can.
Oh, I gotta hit the heart. April 1st.
April 1st. So the only thing I know that might be in reference to is when I was writing the Startup Visa blog and video and researching what the government is actually saying and not saying about the current changes. I wrote to our immigration lawyer, and he said he had a new client, somebody that we had actually put in contact with him, who lives, well, I don't want to say where. I don't want to give out anyone's personal information. So our immigration lawyer had a new client who lived next to the capital city of a prefecture, and he wanted to start a startup visa in that city. It was not a city that had offered the startup visa previously, so they were going through the process after January 1st, when it was supposed to have been available nationwide, but that city was still going through its process of setting up the startup visa program, so it was not ready yet. That city told our immigration lawyer on behalf of his new client to check back after April. So that city had determined that it was going to be at least April before they were accepting applications, but there was no April 1st date, so that might not be what you're referring to. They just said check back after April, to see where we're at with the startup visa location. And that was just one city. So based on everything I read, if you haven't watched that video, you can go back and watch that. And I'm sure there are other sources besides just ourselves. You do have to be careful. It's a very, very sensationalized topic right now. There's a lot of people sharing things that they've heard from other people, but that has not been officially announced by Japanese immigration. So just make sure that whatever information you are trusting cites their sources of an official Japan government website or document, and not citing sources of a news article or anything like that. So based on the best information that I could receive from our immigration lawyer and the various official Japanese government websites, it seems like it's possible that the new cities and prefectures may have up until the end of 2025 to get their programs implemented. What we theorize, what we suspect is going to happen, is that the new places are going to start popping online over the course of the coming months, and then by the end of 2025 it will be nationwide. But that is not, that's our theory based on all the reading that we've done from the official government sites, so that is a speculation. Does that answer your question? Let us know if you have any follow-up questions to that, and you can go back and watch that video. And if anyone finds new solid information, let me know, please, because I want to share this with everyone. I spent a couple days just diving through everything to write that blog and talk to my immigration lawyer and put all the information together. And it was a lot of piecing together and translating Japanese documents, and I don't have the kind of time to just keep delving into that, because it doesn't affect us and our current situation because we're off the startup visa, but I want to share that information with everyone because it's the number one topic that we get asked about, very closely followed by Akiyas and abandoned houses. So I want to be able to share accurate information with everyone. So if anyone goes through the process or gets solid new updates over the course of the year, please let me know. Feel free to shoot me an email or leave a comment. If you leave a comment with information, please cite a source so then we can go check that out and we can make sure we're all sharing accurate information.
Okay, we got a question about beekeeping.
Oh, yay!
A while ago, so let's go back to that. So how do we, Stay All Day wants to know where we buy our queens from. Can they be couriered, or do you work alongside a local beekeeper? Do you need to be part of an association? So
you can answer all those.
Yes. So they can be. You can order them in the mail. We actually got nukes from a local beekeeper who is our bee sensei, and that is the route I would go. I think in any case, because your bees are going to be more adapted to your local conditions. So when we the first year, we really didn't do any beekeeping at all, but we did buy one colony, which was for pollination colony, and we got it too late in the year, so it did not have a queen, it was advertised as having a queen, but it did not. But the queen, so they raised the queen from the brood that came with the package, and she did start laying, but it was too late in the year, so that colony failed, unfortunately. But then that year we managed to hook up with our sensei. And the way that we did that was we contacted him on Instagram, while we were still in Mexico, and it took him over a year to get back to us. But
once he did, he's become just he completely took us under his wing. Nothing against him. I think he just didn't check his messages or something. But then once he connected with us, he has been so helpful. So I think it's really, really, really important to get relationships with your local beekeepers.
Yeah. But you can order them online, and we've ordered a lot of our beekeeping equipment from online websites. It's not as well developed as the United States, and you can get some stuff shipped from the United States. I haven't done that yet, but that's an option too. Maybe not queens. I don't know about importing queens. I think there's quarantine stuff associated with that. But yeah, so I would go with a local beekeeper for sure, and just for comparison's sake, I was contacted just this week by a beekeeper in Matsuyama, which is about an hour and a half south of here. He just found us online, and he's an English speaker. So he asked me if I knew where to get queens, and I just referred to him to our bee sensei again, and he's going to be purchasing them from him. So that gives you an idea. Matsuyama is quite a bit larger city than Imabari is, and for whatever reason, he had trouble finding someone to get bees from down there. So it's not going to be as easy as it would be in other countries. But yeah, if you're in our neck of the woods, reach out to me, and I can put you in contact with him. We'll probably be offering queens, a few years down the road.
Steve coming in good with the puns. Even on a sick day, Steve. He says a big hive 5 for the bee info.
Grown. As far as being in an association, you don't need to. I guess we informally are, because there's a little association of beekeepers on Ōmishima, and then there's a nationwide association that we're not part of yet, but our sensei is, and so we buy honey or sugar. We buy sugar to feed the bees and pollen to feed the bees from him at cost, so we get a bulk discount for that.
Yeah, and our local beekeeping association, I don't know if they have like a formal membership or anything. We did attend. They have one annual beekeepers meeting where everyone on the island gets together. It was about a dozen people at a coffee shop, and they do sort of self-governing. So when you want to open a new bee yard, or if you want to put new hives in a new location, you do have to check with the association, and they're going to check on your local neighbors, your closest beekeeping neighbors, just to make sure that they're okay with you putting bees in a new area. So again, like many things in Japan, it's really important to be involved in the community because they're going to be making decisions about you. Unbelievable, Steve. Get out of here. Let's see. TJ says, love your channel, love your feedback. Thank you very much. We are about to start building a beach house next month in northern Okinawa. Wow. Nice and tropical. We're not sure if we will go the Airbnb route, as it won't be our main house. Wow. Awesome. Wishing you the best of luck. That's we'd like to have some Okinawa weather right now. We're a little bit chilly here for our tastes. Let's see. Stay All Day says, it's a massive topic. I export honey to Japan and want to retire there and continue beekeeping. Yeah, Japan needs beekeepers. Part of our business plan, our business consultant helped do some Japanese honey research for us, and Japan imports almost 100% of its honey. Very, very little honey is actually being produced in Japan that Japan is consuming. So, going to the natural farming and the local and trying to, not ship things across the world, it's a big deal. Japan relies heavily on honey imports, and so I think honey produced here in Japan is just automatically a lot of people are going to prefer that and seek that out. So I don't remember the number exactly. I think it was less than 10%. I'm pretty sure it was a single-digit percentage of Japan's honey is actually produced in Japan. So that's a big deal for us. That's also why we don't want to do any sort of rebranding for anyone, or some places will buy and then resell as their own, and we want to make sure that everything we're producing is by us and locally. So that's part of the attraction, I think, of just our small batch honey, is that we're produced right here on Ōmishima.
Yeah, so Stay All Day, I assume you're in New Zealand. Interested what the situation is like there, because I'm sure you've heard about the massive beekeeping failures that they're having in the United States right now that they're just finding out about. We did have a bad year for bees here, according to all the local guys that we talked to, and I was asking our sensei about it a few days ago, and he said, yeah, the same thing is true with the big pollinating services in Japan. Like the beekeepers that operate similarly to how most of the beekeepers operate in the United States, which means they truck their bees to different crops for pollinating. They said they're having the same problems with massive colony failures. So what's it like down there? If you want to weigh in, I'd be interested to hear.
Yeah, it's always interesting to hear how beekeeping is going globally. I feel like there's a lot of overlap, but then everybody's also facing their own challenges. I don't know if does New Zealand have the giant hornets? Because that has been a major learning curve for us.
No, they don't have the giant hornets.
Yeah, that will be, if you have been beekeeping for a long period of time, any period of time elsewhere where you don't have the giant hornet, that's going to be a big change. We were not very experienced beekeepers before coming here and making beekeeping the focus of our business. We just really enjoyed beekeeping, and we were fairly new to it, but in Louisiana it was like beekeeping. Evan says it's beekeeping on easy mode apparently, because we just got buckets of honey, and year round there's something blooming, and it's sold immediately. Like we sold out of our honey in a day just selling on Facebook Marketplace in Louisiana. Now, we have one hive, but that experience, we enjoyed beekeeping so much, really loved it, and wanted to make that our focus here. The giant hornet really changes things. So not saying that to be a downer, but it's just be aware that the first year, especially as you learn what hornet season is and how to protect your bees, the first year is going to be a big learning experience.
Okay, we got another beekeeping question. Jean-Claude is just asking about native Japanese bees. Yeah, so most beekeepers, I don't think any of the professional beekeepers that I know of keep Japanese bees. I know of a few, online that I've talked to, but
I read a statistic somewhere that, almost no commercial production quality, no high level honey producer in Japan uses native honeybees for production. They're mostly like a hobbyist thing, or there's a couple of great Instagram pages of Japan natural native beekeeping, but they're so different that they're not usually used for major honey productions.
Yeah, they're just more wild. So they're more likely to abscond, which means that they leave the hive if they don't like the conditions. So we did have one Japanese hive that was given to us this year, and they absconded pretty quickly when it got super hot. But yeah, they're not as domesticated, I would say. I don't think they've been bred because they're kept in fixed frame hives, so you can't take out a frame and inspect it. They build the comb naturally. Anyway, I don't know how much we want to talk about that. I think we're gonna focus more on beekeeping in a future live, if that's interesting to people. But
yeah, we do get a lot of bee questions, but yeah, Japanese honeybees are completely different. We want to learn about them more in the future. We do plan to have a number of Japanese colonies, but we don't have a ton of experience with them yet. They're just, the way they construct the comb, the way the hives are built, everything's completely different. Yeah, let's see, what do we have coming up next? Well, this month we've been working on beehive prep. Evan has been in his honeybee workshop. This year, so we're expanding to 20 colonies very soon as the weather is warm enough to safely move bees. We will grow to 20 colonies. So Evan has been building the beehive boxes in preparation for that. He just started last week. And then we'll go through and paint them and get them all ready by, I think, March 10th or so is when we're going to be getting our bees, when the weather should be nice enough. So last year we bought kits. So, the wood comes cut and then you assemble it all yourself. And this year Evan took the measurements from our previous kits and bought some woodworking equipment. So he's been building them himself. So that saves how much?
I think They're like 7,000 yen per hive to buy a kit, and I'm making them for about 2,000 yen, so significant.
Yep. So he's cutting all the wood and building them, and using some reclaimed wood when possible. And he bought some of the pieces, and we've just been going through our wood piles and our various stashes of wood to pull those out and use them for bee boxes. So we'll have a mix of new and reclaimed wood with the boxes that Evan's building this year. So that's pretty fun. I haven't filmed any of that yet. I guess I should be filming that. I feel like, I don't know, the bee videos are just a little bit harder to make, but that's what everybody wants. So I do need to make that more of a priority, because I know those are interesting to a lot of people, and I want to share that information as well. Just so it always seems a little bit more difficult to film, but that's what we've been working on, and that's what we're going to focus on probably our whole next month, besides the little bit of renovation that we have to do before March. Probably all of March is going to be bee prep and monitoring our new hives. So Evan will be building bee hives. We have to build these stands for the hives to go on, because those need to be level for them to draw their comb. We're doing garden prep. Evan will be planting seeds. So we're at the end of February now, and probably all of March will be spring prep bees and seeds. So that's going to be our main focus.
And I do plan to build some Japanese beehives soon for their swarm season. I'm going to probably just be catching those all, because they just swarm. They're in the woods. So I'll be building those, and the swarm season is going to start in probably April for those guys. So.
And we're still waiting. I think we reported this last month, but we're still waiting on the subsidy application. The deadline just sort of keeps getting pushed back. So it was supposed to be last fall, I think, originally. So for those who don't know, we've got a big application prepared for a local small business subsidy that's going to help us in a big way if we receive it. So please send us your well wishes for that. Our business consultant helped us draft a very good proposal for the subsidy. It's going to help us expand the guest house from 6 guests to 10 by adding a second toilet room here and a few other things, as well as expand the parking out front so we can open the retro shop. And then combined with that, we're working on an application for a small bank loan to take care of the shop roof, which has recently failed and needs to be replaced before we can turn it into a functioning retro shop. I can't put any antiques in there until we know for sure that the roof isn't going to drip water and that it's not going to flood. So we have high hopes for this subsidy. It will help us immensely because they cover 2/3 of the cost, and we would not be able to afford those construction changes on our own. As it is, it's going to be a bit of a stretch for us to cover 1/3 of it, but we are really hoping that'll put us in a great position for opening the retro shop. The rest of the work we'll be able to do ourselves, and possibly with the help of some others who've offered their assistance while they're in the area, either just in telling us how to do things or helping us come up with solutions to problems, or also possibly like physically helping us with some plaster. So really hoping for the subsidy. Hopefully that application deadline is going to be announced soon. Then we can submit that and find out as well. We should be hearing back this month about our bank loan for the shop roof, and then we'll just be super busy little bees. Yep. Steve got a question from Wayne. Hey Steve, what is the process of finding abandoned farmland? That's right, he commented that earlier and then says too difficult to explain in chat. So I'm going to assume that that's also probably a in-person thing. You gotta be connected to the community to find out information like that, although there might be some sort of document you can get at City Hall. I think Steve made that comment when I was talking earlier about the finding out who owns abandoned houses. So Steve, if you don't if that's too complicated to answer in chat, that's totally fine. We can talk about that later. Because I'm not sure how to answer that myself. We don't have experience with that.
Steve's got a great Patreon where he answers questions like that. So
he does. Steve has way more farming experience than us, and we're really happy that he was able to join us too. Last month he was our official moderator in the chat, answering farmland questions and farming questions. We got a ton of farming questions last month. So thanks, Steve, for hanging out here in the chat with us again. I know it's your sick day today, so hope you feel better, but we're happy to have you here in the chat helping us out with the farm questions, because we're very new to that aspect and we don't have a ton of experience. Steve's got a lot of great answers to some questions that we're not able to answer yet. But we're coming up to the end here. We got just under 10 minutes left. I've talked about most of what I want to talk about. If we've got any last minute questions, feel free to throw them out there and we'll just chat about that until the end. We've got 30 people watching right now, so thanks so much for joining us. Feel free to throw those questions out there. We're also open to suggestions for how the format's going. If you like this 2-hour a month format, if you have suggestions for future monthly topics, always open to feedback and ideas for how we can keep this interesting and valuable for you and for us, and sort of work together to make this a monthly place where we can get together and answer each other's questions and share information totally accurate and good to go. So, let's see, Jean-Claude says, must your business income be mostly Japanese sourced, or it doesn't matter as long as it's profitable? That's a good question, and we don't have a ton of experience with that because our income is mostly Japanese sourced. We do get some income in US dollars from our real estate consulting clients, so we are allowed to get some income. It goes to our, when we get paid in US dollars, which I try not to, it goes to our personal US bank account, and then we transfer it to our Japanese personal bank account, and then at the end of the month, Benton Homestead invoices our personal account to get that income then transferred over there. So it's a bit of a process, and we have to show an accounting paper trail for that, and I'm honestly not sure that that's a good way to do it because of the dual country taxes. So we don't like to get income in US dollars. We avoid it whenever possible. We've got most things set up to go directly to Benton Homestead's bank account, business bank account in yen, but we are allowed to get some US income. It just, you can see how that's a complicated process to receive it in the US bank, transfer it to the Japanese personal bank, then invoice and transfer it to the Japanese business account. It gets to be a lot of just, I gotta keep track of all that, and it's a lot of different transactions and paperwork. We are technically allowed to do that, but is it the best idea? I'm not sure. So I can't fully answer that question any more than that. We were just talking yesterday about the online retro shop and whether or not we could go to American eBay or if we would have to do Japanese eBay if we sold antiques online, as well as the physical shop that we're trying to build here. And that's also sort of a question. So in addition to just the shipping costs, and you know, I don't know what kind of foreign income your business would be. You're welcome to share with us if you like, but yeah, there is a lot of questions there, and that would be a question for an accountant. So definitely recommend making good friends with your accountant because they're going to help you a lot. I was a sole proprietor and did all my own taxes and accounting for my whole time as a professional photographer in the US, and I feel like that was complicated, but I never felt like it was too complicated for me to do. However, here in Japan, I'm not doing any of it. We're completely using our accountant's advice and assistance for all of that. We've got another super chat. Thank you, Cody. Thanks you too for your time and knowledge. Thank you so much. We appreciate you being here and joining the conversation. And that donation goes directly to Benton Homestead's business account. And so that adds to the income that we need to make this year in order to get our next visa renewal. So thank you so much. Everything that you all are doing, we're happy to share with you, and we're always very happy when that is reciprocal. So thanks so much. Your every donation, big or small, helps us meet our own goals as well. So we're happy to share information and help you meet your goals too. All right. A couple minutes left. Usually we run over. We got about 4 minutes here. We'll just hang out with you guys, but thank you so much. This was good. How are you feeling?
Great.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jean-Claude says thanks. Thank you. Thanks for being here. For being part of the conversation. I think this was good. I have said before that I have a hard time being in front of the camera, and then being live in front of the camera is just even more anxiety inducing. But every time we've done a live, I've felt comfortable. So this is only our 4th time. We're still very new to this. So thank you all also for just being understanding and cooperative and helpful and encouraging. I feel like every time we do this, it feels better and better, but it's never even been uncomfortable. Ever since, our first live, we were in the middle of the summer in front of in our hot attic going through dusty boxes. But I do enjoy this, I think, and I didn't expect to enjoy it. I thought it was going to be something that I sort of dreaded or didn't want to do. But this is good. I can see doing this once a month, and as long as it's useful and helpful information for you guys, and then it's also reciprocated and beneficial for us as well. So far, I'm enjoying it. So I hope y'all are enjoying it too.
Yeah. Steve wants to reserve 3 jars of honey. You got it.
All right, Steve.
We might be getting a batch of sakura honey.
Yes. Yeah, you can talk about that for our last couple of minutes.
Sakura honey.
Yeah, we're gonna try. It's very hard to get, apparently, because of the timing of the cherry blossoms, but we're going to give it a shot. And so I guess the short version of the story is that you feed your bees in the winter to keep them healthy when nothing's blooming and to help them get through the winter. But if you want to harvest the cherry blossom honey, then you have to remove any sugar that's been in the hive. They actually put it into their comb, so they'll take the sugar and put it into their comb and store it for later. So you have to remove anything that could have sugar in it, and then you have to give them new frames for them to fill with the cherry blossom honey. So it's a very short window of time that the sakura are blooming, and you have to have the frames empty of sugar, new frames available for them, and then hope that they fill that quickly during the short window. So we are going to attempt. Wish us luck. Wish us luck.
And Amy asks, can she order honey from us and send it to her family in Japan? Yes, our website has that function. We don't have any in stock right now, but as I said, we might with the sakura blossom, and then we will for certain, barring extreme circumstances, we will have a reasonable harvest from the mikan blossoms in June. June,
yes. So our website is already set up to accept orders for shipping, and then I also take orders just online. You can send me an email or anything like that. It's easiest to go through the website. We're currently out of stock, so the listing is up there, but it says out of stock. And then as soon as we have new batches available, those will go on the website. I'll definitely have videos and information out, and it'll be on our Instagram and our probably our YouTube where you can post a little update. And then we'll have a video of our spring harvest, I'm sure, as well. So you'll know when we have honey available. Right now we are out of stock. Our honey last year sold very, very quickly, which was great. But we were basically only harvesting from the equivalent of about 2 hives. So we're going to have 20 hives this year. We're really, really hoping to get a lot more honey available this year. But we had a number of people last year order from the US to ship to people in Japan. So yes, the answer is definitely yes. And it's all through a Shopify cart that I have on our website. So you can go check that out. And that's 10 o'clock. It's looking like we've reached the end of the questions, but thanks so much for joining us, guys. It's been another good month. Appreciate all the questions and all the feedback. And let us know in the next couple of weeks if you have a idea for what next month's general topic should be. We think questions will always be open-ended, but we always are looking for feedback for what kind of topics. Steve says, send me honey and I will sell it off for you quickly in my shop. Sounds great, Steve. Look forward to working with you. Thanks for all that you both shared from Toaster's Best Friend. All right, y'all. Thank you so much. We'll see you next month.
All right, bye.
Bee topic. John Claude says bees.